Hey everybody, it's Brock and we got a brand new episode of All About. We're at month 3 on the new Reef tank and we got a lot of fun things to talk about, from coral babies, figuring out the water level in an all-in-one tank, new stock, and much more. This is the first video you've landed on about my new tank. Be sure to check out the complete setup guide I did to get us to this point. Let's dive in. The tank has been growing some serious algae around the rocks, sand, and glass, which is expected, especially after adding seasoned water to dry rock. The bacteria is going to tackle those quickly, and you're going to see it. Diatoms, hair algae, even some green cyano was growing around, plus some of that harder green algae on the glass. I thought about using ChemiClean for the cyano on the sand bed, but decided I would just sift it heavily and hope my hermits would go after it, since it'd be small portions for them to eat. I used a razor blade to clean off the harder algae off the glass. Would highly recommend you buy one of the aquarium scrapers rather than doing this. It's just the only thing I had at the moment. I don't know which power head you're currently using, but this Nero 5 from Aqua Illumination has been great, especially having the ability to separate each piece and clean off any algae growing on it. This was right after the water change, still a little cloudy. But the next day, the tank was looking spotless. The next thing I want to talk about is these resilient Acans of mine. I got a singular head in December of 2024, so I've had them for 1 year, and they had a crazy time in the tank at first. The placement I initially put them in was getting stung by my ever-growing rose bulb anemones. Moved them, then it seemed they were having some chemical warfare with a Frogspawn. Moved them yet again, and I could see the skin starting to peel from stress. I let them be, fed them, and just kind of hoped for the best. Then they ended up getting knocked off their spot by some turbo snails and falling to the back of the tank. At this point, I really did not see them surviving, so I just left them back there. Months go by and I'm doing a water change. What do you know? I see the Acan falling into a cave perfectly lit up by the LEDs just flourishing. So I moved them to the sand bed and they have been doing great. In the new tank, my clownfish will constantly try to bury them in the sand as they are near the Anemone island, which kind of surprised me because I've seen clownfish host them. After a year, I still just had this singular head. With them being buried, I wanted to add a rock to the front that I could wedge the plug into and have the Acans sit a bit higher so they would not get buried. And what do you know? I see the bottom half of the Acans covered in babies. At least 4 or 5 right below the original head. I was so excited. Took pictures, sent it to the family. It was a great feeling, seeing that growth. After placing them at a higher vantage point, the baby heads have their polyps extended all day long, growing quickly. If anyone happens to know the name of this coloration, please let me know. I haven't found this exact color online anywhere. It's a reddish pink with stripes, and the center has a really cool neon green around the mouth. Next on our stock list is the Yuma Recordias. Right now I only have one in the tank, but just recently I can see a baby popping out under the original. I've had these Recordias since January of 2018, and they have gone to so many different people's tanks over the years. I don't doubt I've had 50 or more Recordias get taken to our local shop and sold to others. Yumas get big and they pack a powerful sting to surrounding corals, so make sure you place them somewhere they can grow. My best luck came when I placed the original at the top of the rock and the Recordia slowly retreated to the sand bed, laying babies all down that rock. Then we got a small patch of Zoas. I was recently told these are Sunny D's, so we're going to run with that. The original had 4, and after a year I can see 1 to 2 starting to grow below them, but the sizes of the 4 has gotten really big. Even the fingers that surround the head have some green glitter on them. It's really cool up close. This red one looks like lava, so again, if anyone knows the name, let me know. These were actually growing fast in my previous tank, from 1 to 4 in a year. They were on another rock that had tons of vermitid snails on it, so I only brought this one over, but it is thriving and looking healthy. Really hoping they take over this left bottom side of the rock. Above the Recordias, we have this massive colony of Frogspawn. I got these in April of 2024, so just a few months shy of 2 years old. Originally, they had about 11 to 12 heads, which is already a nice sized colony of Frogspawn, and today they have over 20. Incredible growth in a short amount of time. The fleshy part of the heads are growing out so far that some of the heads below are not even getting enough light. So I'll eventually have to do some fragging, but I need to get a better tool so I don't crack the entire branch. I really like how it's all together at the moment. I did cut a few dead heads off the back as they look to have some vermitid snail shells on them, They appeared empty, but I cut them off just in case. I really need to get one of those 3D printed racks that I can start putting frag plugs on. The dream of this large circle cave would be to fill it with Euphyllia corals along the circle. I think that would look really cool. Lastly, we have our rose bulb anemones. After the heater incident a few years ago, I only had a couple anemones the size of pennies survive. So I bought a large healthy one in July of 2024, and we have exploded since. I think we currently have 12 anemones now, and after moving them into this new tank, they started splitting like crazy. I've had 2 venture off from the anemone island. One ended up in the Carib Sea branch rock, which I was really wanting to use for the SPS frags. So I have to find a way to either move them or just leave them there and find a new spot for the SPS ones. And then another way made its way behind the Frogspawn. I'm going to need to watch out for that, make sure it doesn't start stinging the Frogspawn. The anemones themselves are healthy, but something that seemed off from how they were the first week in the new tank and how they were in the previous tank. They were very long, stretched out in the current, but now they are bulbed up and on the outskirts of this rock. And just this week, the clownfish was actually moving some of those bottom pieces of the rock structure towards the left side of the tank. So this rock is just giving me some bad juju. My guess is that there's still some stinging hitchhikers on this rock. Vermitid snails have been spotted on this rock, and I've tried dealing with those with some wire cutters, but recently I've noticed some spinid worms on them too. So I'm at a point where I want to take this rock out and do something else here in the middle for the anemones. Plus, I don't want to deal with vermitid snails again in this new tank, which has got me thinking back. Vermitid snails became a problem that happened almost overnight, and this specific rock was added at a later time in that previous 75 gallon. So maybe start thinking, what if this is the rock that brought them into the tank? They might see a new structure here in the middle of the tank by the next check-in. The clownfish still hosts the heck out of them, continues digging the sand out around the rocks for whatever reason, but also brings them food. Now let's check in on the fish. When moving fish to a new tank, even after they've been together for a while, you do run into the chance of some aggression happening as they claim the new territory around the tank. This unfortunately happened between the purple pseudochromis and the Talbot's damsel. The damsel stuck heavily to the left side of the tank, and the pseudochromis really liked the cave on the right, but for whatever reason, that purple one started chasing that damsel constantly throughout the day, eventually leading to the damsel to perish. I was a little worried because I never found the actual body of the fish, so I'm hoping the anemones got a live meal or the hermit crabs took care of it. I've had this pseudochromis for a year now. While it does have an attitude, it looks really pretty under the LEDs and against the corals. A great explorer too, making good use of the caves and the holes I built in this tank. The Taimini tank continues to patrol the territory like a king. I've had this tank since 2018, so just shy of 8 years old. One of the best algae eaters in the tank I've ever had. Loves eating the natural hair algae that grows and wants dry seaweed on a clip daily. The gold striped maroon clownfish is still here and thriving. Had this one since 2015, turned 10 years old in April of this year. Hosts the anemones like a champ, eats anything I put in the tank, and is a menace at stirring up sand in this new tank. Only experienced it some in the previous 75, but in this new tank, the clown does it constantly. As long as I do my monthly water changes and siphon the sand, really doesn't cause that big of an issue because he's just stirring up clean sand. For the future, I want to get a breed of wrasse, a new goby, and definitely some others. I'm waiting to get a lid though for the tank, as I don't want the new fish to jump out of this rimless tank. This new tank is a 62 gallon Tideline all-in-one lagoon tank from Planet Aquariums, and with an all-in-one aquarium, it essentially just means that instead of hang on the back filters, canisters, or sumps up under, the back half of your tank has a number of chambers your water will run through, acting as that sump or filter. Now, I first want to explain how the filtration works, and then we'll get into the issues I've faced and the solutions I came up with. Now, I'm writing the script before I try this, but I'm hoping to set up my tripod in front of the tank, then draw over it to show you the chambers and the flow of the water as if we're looking like an x-ray through the tank. Blue outlines will be the chambers and the overall structure of this back compartment, and the red will be the flow of the water. The overflows in the center of the tank with slits cut out for the water to perform a waterfall effect. This chamber is split into the left and right side, down the middle, and the water flows directly down. The small open spot in the chamber allows it to flow immediately back up a narrow path and exits to the largest chamber on the right. Based on the hair algae's flow in the back of the tank, the flow looks to continue right, hit the next chamber wall, and get sucked straight down. And I'm betting this probably does a bit of a circle flow pattern, or maybe a diagonal pattern as it gets sucked down into the next narrow chamber, where it comes back up and over into the last chamber that has your return pump that sucks it down and back up through the tube and into your outtakes. Fun, right? How Nemo survived that? I could not tell you. Same thing occurs on the left. Water goes down from the overflow, back up into the largest chamber, back down into the narrow chamber, up, down, and back up. The return pump out the outtakes. These back chambers are very customizable. They give you 2 filter socks to put in the middle chambers, 2 return pumps, 1 for each side, and then you're free to do whatever else. So where do my issues come into play? My biggest issue was that I could not get the water level to be 1 inch below the top of the glass like the website said it would be. Mine would rub the edge of the top, causing constant water spillovers from the wave maker, from fish splashing the top, and from snails riding the edge of this tank. Trying to clean the glass with a mag float was also a headache because it would spill water out over the top constantly. Now this is my first time having a rimless tank. Tanks with a frame usually have a lip over the top, which allows you to not really run into this issue. But having an inch of rim versus riding the very top makes a big difference. My second issue, which was also a result of the water level being so high, was that the sump along the back of the tank was very loud. It is not filled to the max. Every morning I had to top off the tank, otherwise the water would sound like a rushing river in the living room. It got annoying quickly. You can see in these videos that it appears that the middle compartment could not pull down the water quickly enough, causing it to spill over the edge and into that first compartment of water, bringing it up. So lots of splashing occurred. I tried a bunch of different options too. I would drain out some water, turn the pumps on, and fill it only from the back, but it still gets too high. I would do the opposite and only fill up the tank from the actual tank, but it still, again, gets too high. I could unplug one of the pumps and it would get to the right level, but as soon as you plugged it back in, the tank would get too high. Took out the outtake pumps, made sure there was nothing blocking the chamber, and finally it dawned on me, what if it's these filter socks? I initially thought the filter socks that it came with were odd because any I had in the past felt very much like cloth, water flowed through easily, but the provided almost had a plastic feel to them. Hopefully that makes some sense. So as I pull these filter socks out of the water, I noticed that the water is not exiting the sock, but just barely trickling out the bottom. That immediately made me think, oh boy, these socks are not allowing flow to go as smoothly as the pumps are trying to pull. Put them to the sides, turned everything back on, and what do you know? The tank sits at an inch below the top. And I wish y'all could have seen my reaction when I did. There was relief, excitement, and just finally figuring out what was going wrong. Now you might see these socks being brown and tell me, Brock, you need to change those out. But water level has been causing me issues since week 1 of the tank being up. So I really believe these filter socks are just too dense for these return pumps to function properly. And get this, after a couple days of the filter socks being out and just polyfilter and ChemiPures in the tank, it looks the clearest it's been since I've gotten it up. So again, a ton of relief there. I did get a couple of comments from my last video that I wanted to share in this video just because there's not a ton of info out there for this tank yet, so I'm hoping this will help improve people's use of this tank. One of the comments was an issue where the left or right side would evaporate way quicker than the other and that they were never at the same level. Based on their website, one side will be slightly lower than the other just due to it being an all-in-one tank, and they recommend the auto top off being on the side that is lower. From my tank, personally, I don't have an auto top off, but mine are almost exactly level on the left and right side by a centimeter's difference. So I haven't ran into this problem. I can say if you're filling the tank up, say after a water change, and you're just filling it up from the right side, it does take time for that water to travel over as you overflow the right side and for it to get over there into the left side. It takes like probably a solid 60 seconds, so you have to just sit there and watch the water level on the left slowly come back up for you, and it'll even out based on my testing of it. The other comment was stating that a chamber was built incorrectly and causing the water to flow over into the first chamber. So this one sounded pretty similar to my issue of the socks blocking flow and it also overflowing into that next. So if you're having any issues with this all-in-one tank, please leave comments down below so we can help each other out with a solution. My advice after owning the tank for 3 months now would be to make sure nothing is slowing down that flow of your return pumps. Overall, the tank is incredible. I love it. It's super pretty. It's very well made. Just had some annoyances that we're working through as we learn more about using it. We did get a few new things in the tank. Right now, I've not gotten fish. Still waiting on that lid to come in. But we did get some new corals. First is a small frag of neon green candy cane corals. These looked very small in the shop, but it had 5 heads on it. So my goal was to get them in my tank, fatten them up, and then I'd have 5 heads that were really cheap at the store, so I didn't want to miss out on that. Next is 2, almost 3 heads of your basic coloration hammer. Nice purple heads with a highlight of green towards the base. I can also see some tiny babies already springing off below it. And lastly is my favorite purchase this month was the neon green hammers. 2 really fatty heads that had great color and looked really healthy. Super excited about this circle cave that I'm hoping to have it covered in Euphyllia corals. Let me know what you think. I change about 20% of the water monthly, siphon the sand really well. I got some hair algae and dino growing in different spots, which I'm actually excited for. That gives my cleanup crew something to eat and my tank some natural food. I see a ton of hair algae in the back compartments. I haven't really decided what I'll do back there, what I'm gonna add. Definitely thinking about rubble rock, getting something that's like 3D printed where I can stack my filter media on top of it. And then also a protein skimmer back there would be cool. In the next video, I'll break down my flow, lighting, and what I'm feeding my corals, and whatever else kind of comes into play. I've been playing around with it, trying to get a good wave going like I've seen some people accomplish. So I'll keep you all posted on how that's going. Thank y'all for tuning in to this month's tank check-in. Happy holidays, y'all be safe, be kind, and I'll see y'all later.